It's October, and that means it's sled prep time. Things around here are a little bit of a mess. Got the 4-cylinder engine here that is still torn apart. Should have been done and back together by now, but something happened. This place is just packed full of random boxes and rails and sled parts, and I just don't feel like dealing with this now, or maybe ever. We're gonna pick one to work on today, and they're not all here. Okay, so the car's gone, truck's under repair, the bike has no registration. Stop making me gotta flip you off. We only gotta go like a couple minutes out of town here. And hopefully we don't get hit by a gravel truck. This is like further out of town than I remember. Hopefully we make it back. Should be pretty quick. There's only 2 sleds in here. This should be pretty quick. There's only 3 sleds in here. All right, it's been a few years, and we got a bunch of new people since we've gone over everything. So let's meet the fleet. Everything is so wedged in here, but let's pick on the Phazer a little bit. So the Phazer, this one is a family heirloom. I bought it off my dad, who bought it off my uncle, who bought it brand new. So it originally came with a 114 track, I think, and now it's got a 159 2-inch track out of a 01. What was it? I think it was a vertical escape or something like that. Got the skid.
It's a little bit of an upgrade from that old one.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna be able to get the hood open. Oh, well, this is all you get. That thing is pretty much like a new sled. Last year we did all the steering, we rebuilt the motor. That thing is like pretty much a new sled, and we didn't even really get to use it last year because of the snow conditions around here. Mostly. So that thing is like totally ready to rock. Carburetor's got rebuilt, new switches. Yeah, it's got maybe 20 kilometers on it since the rebuild. Maybe not even that much. So this thing is not broken in. But besides that clutching, and I'm gonna wrap that up right away, this thing is one of the most dependable units and one of the most tight units in the fleet. Like, this thing is ready to go. Spare tracks over there off of something. M8000 time. Meanwhile, everybody's looking at the snowmobile with the 2 tracks and the 1 ski, wondering what that is. This is my 2014 M8. Best sled I've ever bought by quite a large margin, I'd say. That thing's on its 4th drive clutch, original motor. It's never made me walk anywhere. It's towed things out before. It's like hands down the best sled I've ever owned. The only issue I've ever had with this thing is the blowing up of primary clutches. And now I have that CV Tech Power Block 80 in there. And man, I was literally going through a clutch every 1,000 kilometers. Once 1,000 kilometers was up, that primary clutch needed to be replaced. And I checked it after about 1,500 clicks. And that thing looked brand new. They said it didn't need to be cleaned. It was a service-free clutch. And from what I could tell, they're actually right. It's an awesome sled. I used it in the mountains last year. I bought this machine in 2017, I think. And I don't think anything is straight on it anymore. They've probably noticed like headlight delete and a bunch of other stuff. This sled has a long and complex history on the channel. This is my 71, I think 71 Alpine. I got this sled for free. I got it from a family friend. Man, I don't even think we used this sled last year. The Rotax 399 engine in it, which is a rebuild. We rebuilt this engine. When we did the rebuild, we did have to overboard a little bit because the cylinders weren't in very good shape. So now instead of the Alpine 399, we got the Alpine 420. I don't actually know if that's the real engine displacement. I'm not doing the math on the stroke and the bore or anything. I don't want to know. It's a 420. Single ski in the front here, fuel tank, neutral, forward and reverse gears, twin cylinder, pull start, and electric start. Don't got the battery in it right now. Man, everything works on this thing except the headlight. This is the headlight switch. It did work for a while, and then I hit the headlight switch once, and it zapped me really bad, and it stopped working after that. This Big Boar 420 doesn't screw around. This thing, you can reach speeds of up to 35 kilometers per hour. 30? We don't screw around here. This thing is the least comfortable thing to drive on earth. Here, let me sit on it. I should do this with the hood on. There, so your foot just rests in that hole. It's okay if it rests up against this clutch that's moving 2,000 or 3,000. Just make sure your shoelaces are done up. No engine cover, nothing like that. Here's your air intake. It doesn't really turn, even if you're on the snow. But it is like a trapper snowmobile, so you would be able to like store a dead body here under the... So for people who always are telling me to ride this thing around, take it to Revelstoke, whatever, you don't understand what this thing is like to ride. Like, just taking it for like a little tour around the yard, that's like a full day on the mountain. So these are the sleds that we got here in storage. And then we got all the ones sitting at home. Hopefully this battery gets us home on the scooter. It's a little further out here than I thought. Whoa. Jesus, that's the throttle. All right, let's cue up the 10-second tidy up music here. Well, that's clean enough for today's video. All right, let's bring out our old friend, the turbo. Actually, I changed my mind. We'll do the turbo last. I think we'll actually start with the triple here. This one was giving me running problems last year, and I never discussed why.
Oh, that's funny. Every time it starts running really well is when I know it's about to die.
And here we got the mod sled we picked up last year, the Summit Mach Z with the 779 triple. Little doily. This thing is a Franken sled, and somebody in the day put a lot of money and effort into this thing to make it a sweet ride. Basically what some dude did is he took a triple out of a Mach Z on an F chassis. He stuck it in a slightly newer S chassis. So the whole reason we got this sled was because it was 250 bucks. This was our fun project for the winter last year. Every year we tend to like take on a little bit of a winter project, and this was it. So it's pretty much done. Besides, like, if we wanted to put like some hand warmers, it could use a tachometer. It doesn't have that. 250 bucks, a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. This thing turned out awesome. But now that this thing is all done, I don't really know what I should be doing with it. I don't know if I give it to somebody to race it. I don't know if I sell it. Like, it's actually a really nice sled. It could just use a little more tuning in, that's all. What do we do with it? What do you guys think?
Oh, that sounds fucking good.
Oh, it smells.
I knew you'd love that.
Let's look at the Big Boar, or as I like to refer to myself, is the mistake. '06 M7, big board out to an 800, high compression head, and all sorts of other stuff. This machine I bought last year, it kind of came with a package deal with that Summit Mach Z thing that we worked on a little ways back. And knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have bought this machine. I bought it for the motor. I got it super cheap. And even the guy that I bought it off of didn't really know what the deal was with it. It ended up being way more modified than I thought. For the project that I wanted, I was actually kind of hoping for like more of like a stalker engine, like a stalker 700 race motor, and ended up with this. This is the one that had the blown up gear case in it. And because this was an '06, it actually kind of had a little bit of an oddball diamond drive in it. And the parts are hard to source. There was like 2 or 3 versions of this diamond drive, and this was like the super uncommon one, and parts are hard to find, and also they like to blow up. That's what did this unit in, a diamond drive. The gear case blew up. But the guy told me that it had a fresh engine rebuild right before the gear case blew up. So even though this engine ran great, I had to go into the motor anyway to take some measurements on it just to be able to figure out what this engine was. This engine has that RK Tech head on it, and it could have been a 700 head or it could have been an 800 head. Because there's no labeling on it, I actually had to open up the engine, take some measurements, and figure out if this was a Stalker 700 with a high compression head or if it was an 800 Big Boar with a high compression head. Found out that this is an 800 Big Boar. Now this thing, with all the work it's had done, dual pipes, tune, clutching, Big Boar, high compression head. I don't remember what the horsepower rating was. I did look it up at the time, but it was getting into the domain of the turbo. Like we were getting close. This has like an incredibly powerful engine. it's just not really gonna work for the project that I want it for. That basically means we have an 800 race engine just sitting here looking to go in something. So Ben and Shaw, if you guys want to put this engine in something, like if you can find something you want to put it in, I'll donate an engine. I don't care. Everything, wiring harness, throttle bodies, everything. I don't care what it goes in. I know the shop here seems like a mess, and it is, but enjoy it here because I think this is going to be like the last year we're working out of this place. Okay, turbo time. I actually bought this sled off a customer who always had me work on it. So it had been in my shop a bunch of times. I had always done the repairs on it. The guy never skimped out on anything. This thing, I happen to know since I was the mechanic on it, was tight. He was interested in selling because he wanted to build a new cat, and I was on the fence about buying something anyway, so we struck a deal. Actually, in fact, he paid me for $1,200 worth of work on it, and then picked it up. We struck a deal over the phone. I went and picked it up the next day. We need to work on this one first because this is probably going to be the one we need first. We'll get the clutching tuned in because I just never had it quite right where it needed to be last year. There'll be a couple little things like maybe we'll get some new like steering bushings and stuff for it. I actually had to limp this thing off the hill for reasons unknown. Well, I found that unknown reason. Where you left me, it'll be obvious. I'm going to work on this a little bit. This machine has a tunnel cut, so sometimes what happens with these is the track likes to eat the tail light, and in my case, that's what happened. The wire was dangling there a little bit, then the track then, like, rides later, ate the wire, shorted out the wire. The wire is connected through to the main fuse. The main fuse broke, and then when that main fuse broke, there was actually enough energy in there to arc the connection. So even though the fuse was shot, the connection was arcing, and that's why it would sometimes run and then randomly just cut out on me and run poorly. Because that connection through the main circuit is connected through the tail light, and it was shorted out. In fact, there wasn't even a circuit. So easy fix. I'll get the tail light, I'll zip back together. But believe it or not, that wasn't the biggest problem I found. Aftermarket turbo. So of course the routing for the fuel lines and the oil lines and stuff like that, it can be like a little weird sometimes. I thought one day that maybe my pull rope was like maybe a little greasier than usual. I go in, I check it out, and I can see that the pull rope where it vibrates just from idling had actually rubbed through an oil line and just enough to make a little pinprick in it. So not enough to actually like cause a real leak, but enough to put a pinprick in it, and we gotta replace the that entire oil line, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So this is what we will work on first. We're gonna get it nice and tightened up for the year. No breakdowns. We're gonna get this thing really tightened up for this year because I think it's gonna be its last year. Here's what's left of the wiring harness that the track ripped off the tail light. So somewhere in here, short note. Yeah, this thing's all ripped apart, and all the boost tubes and stuff are off of it, so you can't even see. There's an oil line right where my finger is, right where that pull rope is rubbing. I did have like a ton of problems with the rail, so this rail is beefed up. This rail is bulletproof. They do not come tougher than this one. Okay, I only got like a minute left here on the camera for recording, so I'm gonna wrap it up here, and even just realizing now how dirty my face is. Pretty excited for sledding this year. It's like really all I can think about right now. I know the boys are stoked too, so if you're like me, you're getting your sled fixed finally at the end of summer, and you're getting ready for an awesome season of ride. I hope you guys are excited as I am, because I am stoked, and I know the boys are too, so see everybody in the next one. Links down below. Check it out. Get your sled ready. It's almost time to ride.